If you want to grow in the company, you need to grow the next set of leaders. If you don't grow and develop the leaders that are in your team, you are not really developing your replacements so that you can go. If you don't develop the leaders, you're always going to be in the greedy, needy thing, and you will not be able to think strategically for the group. Right? So developing this professional relationship where you get to know the person, where you get to know their motivations, their skills, and help them develop that. Believe it or not, at the end of the day, it's all game for you. Why? Because they start acting upon themselves. They start taking projects on their own, and you start just coaching like a sport coach. But it gives you the time to start thinking high level.
Welcome to Return on Empathy, a podcast brought to you by the Empathy Collective, a community where leaders come together to navigate change without losing their humanity. Whether you are a plant manager trying to humanize the factory floor, a small business owner wanting to build a strong culture that lasts, or a corporate executive striving to prevent burnout in your team, you belong in this community. Visit theempathycollective.com to join our community of leaders across sectors who are coaching each other through change and disruption, and use the discount code ROEPOD109 to get 10% off your membership. What do you do when the door closes? Not just once, but again, and again. For most people, a slammed door feels like a verdict, a sign to stop, to shrink, to settle. But for today's guest, every closed door became an invitation to adapt, to learn, and to build relationships that would eventually open doors she had never imagined. Dr. Esther Alegria, author of the part memoir, part business book, From Just Esther to Poly-Esther, has lived a life defined not by a single title or linear career path, but by resilience, humility, and an unwavering commitment to growth. Her story is one of reinvention across functions, roles, and identities without letting ego get in the way. What struck me most about Esther's journey is that even when she was overlooked or underestimated, she never stopped investing in people. She built bridges instead of burning them. She gave back when she was still climbing, and she turned her own hard-earned lessons into mentorship for others who were coming up behind her. In today's workplace where adaptability is essential, burnout is real, and so many people are questioning whether they belong. Esther's story is a powerful reminder that empathy isn't just something we offer others, it's something we practice with ourselves. This conversation is about perseverance without bitterness, leadership without ego, and how empathy, when lived, can change the trajectory of an entire career. This is Return on Empathy. Welcome to the show, Esther. It is such a delight to have you here. I must say, after reading your book, From Just Esther to Poly-Esther, I feel like I know you intimately, and I know you were saying this offline. Everyone who reads the book says the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's such an intimate recollection of your past, your childhood, how it shaped who you are, literally your life journey. So it's a really interesting read. And I was engaged, having come from the life sciences industry. I related to what you were going through, but just your passion. Mm-hmm. And your drive and your can-do attitude. Like mm-hmm. I have not seen anything like it. And when I was thinking about what the title of this episode should be, all I could think of was just say yes. That's you. Like you just say, it doesn't matter what it is, just say yes. Like I'm not going to let anyone tell me no. I'm just going to make this happen.
No, that's true. And part of why I decided to go into some parts in the book more intimate is because sometimes, especially the younger generation that look at the leaders, they think that it happened automatically, that it just happened for them. And what I wanted to share is that life is going to bring you challenges in many areas, in work challenges, family challenge, personal challenge. And how do you overcome those life challenge so that you can continue, growing your professional life? You cannot exclude one from the other one.
Yeah. And I love that. So let's talk about challenges. Starting with your childhood and your upbringing, you overcame so many hurdles from a very early age. How did your upbringing and your childhood shape who you are today?
Yeah, I have to say something that in my family, we were 8 children. And so I came from a big family. And my mother, funny enough, she will always say, there's no inheritance in this house. We have nothing to leave you guys behind, but we're going to leave you education. That's going to be our inheritance to you. And then she will say, but by the way, we don't have money to pay for education. So you have to make good grades. You have to work hard so that you can get scholarships to go to college. So, and that always stick, with me listening that, oh, okay. So if I really want to change the dynamic of our life right now and my life in the future, education has to be a big part of it. And in that sense, I'm very grateful to my mother, and I apply it to heart to do that. And if you would have met me in those years, you probably would have think, she's not going to go to college, or life is too complicated for her. But it took passion, determination. Like you said, it was no was not an answer. you know no was not an answer. If this door doesn't open, I'm going to knock this other door. And I kept knocking doors until I got to the right college, to the right education, did a bachelor degree in chemistry and a Ph.D. in chemistry. And everything was not easy, because I married very young. I was 18 when I got married. And by the time I'm 19, I'm a mother. And then the second child. So I did my bachelor degree, my PhD, raising 2 kids. So if you call somebody complicated their life, that was me, but by choice, right? But will that really stop me? It was very clear in my mind that it was not going to stop me. And I owe it to my children to be the best I could be, so that I can be an example for them, and that I can offer them a better life later on.
It's fascinating to me. I remember, and please correct me if I don't get it right, but I remember there was a part in the book where you talk about wanting the lead role in the school play. Was that what it was, the school play? And another girl got the role.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, I'm still going to prepare for this role.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get it, but I'm
Yeah.
practice all the lines and
Yeah.
going to prepare. And then guess what? The girl got sick, or she couldn't make it. And then the director knew that you had
Mm-hmm.
prepared.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what? You got to do the role anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that story so much. Like, just your proactivity and thinking, regardless of the outcome, I'm going to learn this. It's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
experience. And whether or not I get it, fine. But at least the director knows now that
Mm-hmm.
I'm preparing and I want this badly.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just one example of your entire path, how you just
Mm-hmm.
every single door
Mm-hmm.
that oftentimes just slammed in your face,
Mm-hmm.
slammed in your face.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to know, because this happened to you so many times, when you look back now, which no or door that slammed in your face shaped who you became as a leader?
It's hard to say there's this particular one, right? Because every no became a lesson learned, something that shaped me. And especially when the no's hit your heart the stronger, those are probably the ones that change you the most. In that example that you just gave, I wanted to do that role so badly. And I don't know how much I begged the teacher, but she didn't shoot me. But what I learned from that experience was I could have chosen to say, okay, I'm not going to learn the role. They didn't give me this role, and I'm upset, and I'm going to walk away. No, I did not. And I said, you know what, I like that role so much that I'm going to learn it. And I went to every practice. I got my script, and I did it really very happy, even if I was not going to execute. But it just happened that the day of the show, the girl was sick, and she was very nervous and could not do it. And the teacher asked me to do it. So what you learn, if you translate that to your professional life, many of us have gone through applications that may be a promotion and you don't get it. That happens multiple times to people. You could choose to say, because I didn't get that promotion, I'm not going to learn anymore about that area, or I'm not, going to care. But the reality is, by the time somebody is promoted, is because that person already was working at that level, because that person already was executing at that level, right? That's how you get promotion. I was involved in deciding many promotions for my team. And by the time I decide who I take, it is a person that already have the skills and is acting as that next level. So that story, I share that story because you can relate that to your professional life. When there's a no, that should not be the end of you not wanting to learn and portray yourself as somebody that can do that job. You continue doing it, because if it's not that opportunity, there will be another one. That was the lesson that I hope I transmit with that story.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is we often hear, okay, well, it's helpful for employees to have a sponsor or a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
These things are helpful, and you know that
Mm-hmm.
well. But there's a strong element of self-leadership
Mm-hmm.
that you had
Mm-hmm.
to get promoted and helped
Mm-hmm.
get to where you are today. So yes, you had people who believed in you and helped you get there, but most of it was actually you
Mm-hmm.
taking initiative. And I think that can sometimes be misunderstood, or people
Mm-hmm.
in middle management or they're an aspiring leader
Mm-hmm.
think that they need to know the right people or have the right,
Mm-hmm.
mentor or whatever to
Mm-hmm.
get somewhere. But actually, if you take enough initiative and you start to play at that level where you want to be,
Yeah.
you're going to
No,
get it.
you have to. I always, when I coach or mentor young people, I always tell them one of the first things is career development is your responsibility. You have to take it on your own to develop your career. You will find people along the line that will give you a hand, and you will find people that will mentor you, and you will find people that will coach you or sponsor you, right? But you have to take that initiative. Rebecca, I want to share one more of the notes that this one hit at the heart level, and I want to share with that this one in particular, because it has to do with the feedback and how you deal with feedback. So I'm a scientist. My role at that time was a scientist in research and development, and I'm doing great work. Nobody, will question that. And because I like to learn all the time, I was always involved in projects, new projects, and I was very present in everybody's work day. My review that year, the vice president that was giving me the review told me all of that good things, great I was at my technical work, at my scientific work, how much I have contributed. And she also added that I definitely have leadership skills and I could continue growing in the company. But she said, but you have to lose your accent if you want to continue growing. That one hit hard because it hit at my heart, right? I didn't know what to do with it. All I say was, thank you for the feedback. And and I went home, and I have to admit I cried
I would
because
have.
I was thinking, oh my God, I worked so hard to get a PhD, a postdoc in the University of Virginia. So I already tried so hard to get to the high level of education to grow in the industry, and now it's my accent who's gonna hamper this. And 3 days crying, maybe four. I went back and made an appointment with her. And I said, I want to let you know that I appreciate your feedback. And I understand that this may hinder, continue growing. I was thinking if the company would be willing to pay for a speech therapist that can work with me to help me lose my accent. And so you can imagine she could not say no because that was a feedback. And I said, and by the way, I want the speech therapist to come to the company. I won't have to go to an office somewhere. So she did arrange that. right? Which tells me that she was willing to give the feedback, but she was also willing to provide the tools to, to act on the feedback. The funny thing is, I meet the therapist, and the way they do is they make you read, and then they record you, and then they come with an assessment. And she said to me, I have a good news and a bad news. I'm like, okay, tell me the bad news first. And she said, you're never going to lose your accent. And I said, and what is the good news? She said that we can improve your pronunciation to increase your clarity when you talk English. And I was like, okay, but let's work on that. And all she did was really identify vowels or consonants that in Spanish and English sound different because you put your lips or your tongue in a different place. So when I'm talking English, I'm putting my lips and my tongue the way I would put it in Spanish. So when the word comes out, it doesn't come out as it will sound very clear what I'm saying. And I have a lot of funny stories, Rebecca, mispronunciations that hilarious. But I work at it, and I focus on few of those. And I tell you, a couple of years later, somebody saw me giving an all hands meeting, and she came to me and she said to me, Esther, your English sounds so polished. And I felt really, really very good for two reasons. One was I didn't let that feedback get me to the point of stop my desire for growth. I took action, right? And because I took action, there was a result in it. And certainly my accent didn't stop my career. I did improve the clarity and the story tells it for itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that example. And I remember when I read it thinking, wow, there's so many ways you could react to that kind of
Mhm.
feedback. And how you reacted, I think, is how maybe 0.2% of the population would react. Most people would go and cry and then just put their heads down and just say, well, I guess I'm not meant for promoted in this company, or they would get frustrated and start looking
Mhm.
elsewhere. So I just love that case, especially since I literally just published an article on feedback culture on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I feel like we're not really programmed as leaders to give and receive feedback gracefully.
Mhm.
And I love your thoughts on that, and gave this pretty gracefully,
Mhm.
given the type of feedback that was given to you.
Mhm.
What I say in the article is feedback's like an itchy sweater. Like you
Mhm.
try it on. If it's too uncomfortable, or if it doesn't really resonate or sit with you, then you can just always take it off. It's not
Mhm.
always have to just wear the feedback.
Mhm.
But in your case, that feedback was very personal.
Mhm.
I love that you were able to take action and do something,
Mhm.
come back
Mhm.
to the leader and say, okay, this is what I propose.
Mhm.
But in many cases, feedback that's personal like that, there isn't a clear action that you can do to move forward.
Mhm.
Like, what is your recommendation?
I think if you are a person that have ambitions to grow as a leader and be a leader of leaders, you need to learn yourself how to react to the original question. And sometimes a feedback, you could take it as oh, they're telling me already no. I'm not good at this or I'm not good at that. My career is going to be stagnant. And and really as a leader, what you have to learn is how can I turn everything into a yes? How can I turn every situation into a possibility? And if you cannot figure out the possibility, that's okay. Talk to your neighbor, talk to your wife, to your husband, talk to someone that help you see what is the possibility of how can I take action to improve. I will admit that not every feedback is given with good intention. Not every feedback is necessarily worded correctly, and it could harm more than help. But putting that aside, I would say most of the feedback from a leader that cares for you, there's an action that you can take, and and it's okay to feel bad for a day or two. That's normal. But the point is that you have to get out of that with the positive. I think in the book I mentioned you have three things to do, right? One is do nothing. The other one is, take action, or the other one is just walk away. I always choose the I'm going to take action.
I love that. I love what you were saying about looking at the possibility
Mm-hmm.
and turning what seems like a negative situation into something positive that will help you grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to talk a little bit about adaptability, because I think
Mm-hmm.
that what we were just talking about with feedback, that was another great example of you pivoting and adapting. But I also loved how throughout your career, you pivoted roles, functions,
Mm-hmm.
paths, and you always were looking for that possibility, for that
Mm-hmm.
growth opportunity without letting your ego get in the way. And I think
Mm-hmm.
today's workplaces, we often tie our identity with our job title.
Mm-hmm.
How did you as a leader let go of that connection of your identity to your job title and really see
Mm-hmm.
other opportunities as a challenge or a growth opportunity rather than, oh, this might be a demotion or it's a lower.
Yeah, yeah. Mira, Rebecca, the way I see that, when I think in adaptability, I always think the passion for always learning, the passion for continue learning. And that's the platform that I put to how adaptable I'm going to be, right? Because every time you adapt to something, there's a continuous learning that is happening there. In my career, I had opportunities that came out of the blue, from being in R&D, a scientist with labs and classes and doing experiments all the time, to a director coming to me and saying, Esther, I would like you to become the associate director of the vaccine division for the consent decree remediation effort with the FDA. And this was going to be almost like a global sort of role, because I was going to be dealing with entire Wyeth businesses. You could have said no. I could have said no, right? Because it was scary. Yes. Have I ever done that function? No. Did I wanted to leave the lab? Maybe not. But I am very clear that opportunities in life doesn't come all the time. After all the no's I get, when I get an open door, I took it and I say yes immediately. And so, what did I learn from that? Oh my God, I tell you, that was probably one of the best decisions in my career path. Why? Because it took me from a totally scientist lab research focus to how the business runs. I got exposed to all the businesses from Wyeth. I got involved in the transformation that Wyeth needed to do to be able to get out of the consent decree. The amount of learning that I had from that experience was invaluable. So that said, you know, I adapted to the role. Why? Because I wanted to learn something else, because I wanted to continue learning. And when and when you don't know, I find out. If I didn't know this, I will go to somebody that knows and figure it out and read. And that's actually how you do research too. You don't know everything on research. You have to read other papers, what other people have done, for you to build upon that research. And so I took this opportunity, very similar. I haven't done it, but the skills that he's seeing in me are the skills that he needs. I most likely can do it. So let me just go and throw myself there and learn. And
I
the,
also, speaking of just saying, I love how you just say yes without even thinking, like it's just yes. Whenever a
there's a
door
better
opens,
there's a better story.
the Denmark story,
Yeah. Well,
when you didn't even
let me
ask
tell you.
your husband if you basically just said yes, and then you're like, oh shoot, I should probably talk to my husband about moving to Denmark.
Yes, that was a tough one, but yeah, my boss is telling me I'm already a vice president of manufacturing, and they need somebody to go and lead the new facility in Denmark. And my boss called me and he said, Esther, you are the leader that I want there. Do I know doing startups? Maybe not that much. Do I know how to start an organization from ground to up? No. But what I thought was, when he was talking, is he's seen something in me that he believed I have the skills. And this is an opportunity. of learning even more. And I said yes, that I will move to Denmark without even talking to my husband. And then I have to go home and start pretending I'm crying because I took a decision without consulting him and blah, 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 blah. He felt so sorry for me that my husband is like, don't worry, Esther. I go with you. And I have been blessed with a very supportive husband. But there's another one. That one, by the way, was a lateral position. It's not like I was going to be promoted to go and do that. I was a VP of manufacturing in RTP, North Carolina, and I was going to be a VP of manufacturing in Denmark. And so it's not necessarily about the promotion. It's about the new learnings. And my God, did I learn? Oh my God, did I learn? Building the facility, building the team, building the organization, the culture. It was an awesome experience. And I want to share another one for the people that are in the middle management and trying to figure out how can I grow. I was in a position as director of quality control when Biogen reached out to me that they were interested in interviewing me for an associate director in program quality management. Everybody in my friends, colleagues told me, oh, Esther, that's a demotion. You're a director. Why would you take an associate director position? But when I look at what they were trying to do, first of all, they were trying to develop a totally new function in the Biogen organization. So they didn't have a book to give me to say, this is how you run this. And through the interview process, I started in a napkin in the cafeteria while I was waiting, thinking, how can I structure this group and how can I? So when I did the interview with the toughest interviewer, who was the plant manager at that time, I could tell he was going to be a tough one. When I showed John the napkin with my plans for how I was going to organize and why I will organize the group that way and how we will start, he immediately walked to the hiring manager and said, she's the one. Right? So it was not about the title, what motivated me. It was about the learning that this new position was going to give to my portfolio, to my tools of skills and knowledge. And you have to think that the more knowledge you get in your toolbox, if you will, or skills in your toolbox, all of that, what it's doing is really raising the statistics for you to continue growing. So you should not see it as a demotion, or why will I go and do that job if it's not a promotion or I don't get a big raise. No. It's you are getting something. You are getting new skills and you are getting a broader knowledge of the business and the company.
If you are loving this conversation with Esther, this is exactly the type of stuff we are diving into in our online community, the Empathy Collective, where human-centric change leaders across sectors solve their toughest problems together. All leadership levels are welcome, from the front lines to the C-suite. If you would like to join the Empathy Collective community, visit theempathycollective.com and use the discount code ROEPOD109 to get 10% off your membership. We can't wait to see you there. I just love that mindset, and I wonder, because what fascinated me, and this started with you at a very young age, was people noticed you and opened doors because they noticed you had this mindset. And I feel like, in my time in corporate, there was always this mentality that I work really hard, someone will notice me and I'll get promoted. But that wasn't really the case.
Mm-hmm.
Must have been something about you and your proactive way that caused people to look at you and say, oh, she's got potential for this. To say, hey, call you into their office and say, I want to send you to Denmark to build this facility from the ground up. Like, what was it about you that caused people to actually notice you and promote you without you having to go fight for it?
Yeah, I think what it is going back to the passion for education and the passion for learning. When I used to be just an individual contributor, didn't have any leadership role, I will be in meetings that it could be another function, not even my function, that, they're sharing they have a challenge. And I will offer to help. And I remember my boss would say, "You cannot help. You have a job to do." And I would say to my boss, his name was Brad. And I said, "Brad, don't worry. If I have to do this in additional time, extra time, I will do it." But they really have that challenge, and I think I can help. So that was an attitude that I always had. I not necessarily was the person that will go to my boss office to say, "I want a promotion. I have been working so hard, or I have been accomplishing so much that I deserve a promotion." I didn't focus on that. I always focus on, how can I help you? How can I make your life easier? How can I make my boss's life easier, so that by the time I go to him, I already have ideas about what he can do, right? And when you work with that mentality, I think it just increases the statistics for you to be identified as a leader. And certainly you have to conduct yourself with a lot of respect to others, showing always sign of collaboration and teamwork, and letting others shine, rather than you. Mindset is what is the team output rather than the Esther output, which I have to admit that in the very beginning of my career as a young scientist, I was very much focused on Esther output, that Esther completed this experiment, that Esther did this. And very quickly I learned that there's nothing that you can do on your own in a company. It really have to be about the team. It have to be about how you work together. All those attitudes together probably were the ones that make the difference. Be ahead of your boss.
Be ahead of your boss. That's a good quote. I love that.
Make his life or her life easy.
I love that. And I think it connects well to the next question I had for you around relationship building, because I have this hypothesis based on what I've observed in my corporate career and also through my consulting work, that organizations that have strong relationship building tendencies from the top down
Mhm,
are more resilient, more agile.
mhm,
And so I saw that as a common thread throughout your
mhm,
career.
mhm,
Relationships were always key for you, like and in an authentic way. You weren't just
mhm,
this, building relationships with the idea of, oh, this is going to help me with my career. I mean, yes, it will, but
mhm,
you truly valued and appreciated those relationships, and you saw how collaboration
mhm.
stakeholder groups and within a team really made a huge impact. So how did that relationship building that you focused on throughout your career teach you as a leader to become more empathetic, to use empathy as a long-term strategy rather than
Mhm,
building
mhm.
transactional relationships just to get something accomplished?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's Rebecca, that's very important. You could choose to be a leader that lead by force. You could choose to be a leader that lead by raising the voice, by getting fear out of there. That's your choice, right? But you are not going to get a high performing team. I learned very early, you probably have heard about this, about the servant leader. And I took that upon myself, that was the type of leader that I wanted to be. And a servant leader is somebody that actually leads by example, that doesn't shy away from having to put their hands together with the team in activities. And the servant leader is more of a coach to the team. And when you have that, when you choose to be that type of leader, you actually automatically start leading with empathy, right? And trust me that at times there were times that I have to get somebody out of the company, let it go. And I'm very empathetic. And I tell you, every time I have to do that, there were some times that I cry, but I knew it has to be done. So empathy sometimes conflict a little bit with, when do you need to take action? Because I was being paid to have a high performing team, but that doesn't exclude that you could lead with empathy. And what happened is, when you lead with empathy, you tend to develop deeper relationships with your team. And I'm not talking about becoming best friends, social butterflies that, go out all the time. When I'm talking about empathy and relationships in the work environment, is that, you learn what are the best attributes of this person, what are the best skills, and you help that person set themselves so that they can show all those good attributes. Sometimes we focus too much on these are the things that you don't do well and you have to improve. No, let's focus on what you do well, right? And at times, I mean, this sounds funny, but at times, especially when I have to give a tough feedback, I will think that person was my sister or my child or somebody in the family where your true feelings is to make that better, right? And that's sort of helped me to how I choose the words so that I don't attack the person at heart, but rather attack the situation surrounding the issue itself. And I tell you, Rebecca, the other thing that complements that I was not shy to tell them when I made that same mistake. I'm giving the feedback, and I said, you know what, I did that. And this is what happened to me. So with that, what I was saying to them, you are not alone. These are things that we all do, and that helps with how they feel afterward, and they know I'm behind them. And a couple of more points that I want to do in this question because it's so powerful. If you want to grow in the company, you need to grow the next set of leaders. If you don't grow and develop the leaders that are in your team, you are not really developing your replacement so that you can go. If you don't develop the leaders, you're always going to be in the greedy, needy thing, and you will not be able to think strategically for the group, right? So developing this professional relationship where you get to know the person, where you get to know their motivations, their skills, and help them develop that. Believe it or not, at the end of the day, it's all game for you. Why? Because they start acting upon themselves. They start taking projects on their own, and you start just coaching like a sport coach, coaching them. But it gives you the time to start thinking high level. And so the long-term strategy on building those empathy relationship is nothing else that at the end you will leave a legacy of new leaders. And when I retired from Wyatt, they did 3 parties for me. They still say that I was the person that more parties happened when they retired. And in all the parties at the different sites, they always ask me the same thing: Esther, what are you more proud of? And they all got surprised because they were thinking that I was going to say the development of this therapeutic drug, when we launched this new drug, when we built the facility in Denmark, and every time I answer, my legacy and what I'm more proud of are the leaders that have grown under my leadership. And I'm proud how they are now the leaders in the company. And I meant it. So some people got, but what about this? What about that? I said it comes a point in your leadership that it's not about necessarily the technical achievement. That's early in your career. But later in your career is, did you leave leaders behind?
I love that. It reminds me so much of the conversation I had with Barry Waymiller, CEO Bob, who literally just talks about his people as his product, and you would never know what the company actually does because he just focuses on the impact on people. And I feel like you have the same mentality, which is wonderful.
And they still in contact with me. This is the part that I enjoy the most. They still appreciate the time that they spend with you, and still the coaching hasn't stopped. Sometimes they call me because they have, and they are all are doing great. They are in very high level positions in other companies. So the legacy continue. It doesn't stop there.
That's so rewarding. I mean, that must make you feel good. I mean, obviously when you launch a new drug or build a new facility, that also is rewarding, but the impact that you have on people's lives is just, that's hard to beat.
Yeah. No, and when you get people to express that to you, and you see it, how that make them feel, how you make them feel, is very rewarding. And I will always say that's my legacy. Is really developing, and I continue. I'm not stopping doing that, and I get involved very much in coaching and mentoring people that are trying to grow their careers, that are trying to find a path in something not related but related to this developing this relationship. Many times, Rebecca, I found myself telling one of my reports that I believe they could achieve something that they didn't believe they could achieve. I don't know how many times that happened to me. And I'm part of my mentors. I remember I had a mentor in the university that he told me that I could get a PhD. And I argue with that professor how wrong he was. The fact that he said that, right, it got my mind going. And eventually I did apply to graduate school and got my PhD. And I did very well in my PhD and my postdoc. So I took upon myself that I think as I interacted with people, you know, let them recognize that there's a talent, even if they don't see it, just let them know and help people have ambition in life and in their professional life.
I love that. Help people recognize their own potential. We need more people out there doing that for anyone who has imposter syndrome or who just is questioning
Okay.
their own abilities.
Well, that always will be that always will be there. But I think it's just because psychologically you tend to be so hard on yourself. Part of couple of board of directors, a public company, global, and I mean another board for economy development in science and life science. You know, sometimes you feel and every time that comes to my message, Esther, stop it. Because you're just so hard on yourself.
Yeah, we're all guilty of that. Well, I'd love to move on to the fun final part of our conversation, which is
Mm-hmm.
passing the empathy torch. So this is something new that we started this year to try to create more connection between guests.
Mm-hmm.
Because I realize that I know all of you and I see your talents and how you shine your light in this world, but you don't know each other. So I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
create more connection between all of you. So my previous guest is actually the president of a hospital. So Greg, he had an interesting challenge because he came into the hospital leadership team 8 years ago, and he had to basically turn around a culture.
I focused a lot of my comments on the rank and file of an organization, not as much on the leaders, other than the fact that they need to be, disciplined, consistent in what they do. But what if you were working in an organization where a fundamental component of a high reliability organization, that is psychological safety, does not exist? And psychological safety is consistent with one team because you're able to speak up. But if you're not psychologically safe, you're not going to do that. How do you work in an organization where being psychologically safe, which includes, understanding people, the empathy that comes along with understanding where people are, hasn't been part of the culture? How do you flip that?
That's a very interesting question. The good news is that it's possible. The bad news is that it takes time. It's not going to happen in 3 months. It may take 18 months to 14 months to get there. But what is more important than anything is that at the highest level of the organization, there is commitment to improve and to work on the psychological safety of the culture. Somebody at the lower level could start, and I will always encourage that, but they will only have impact among 10 people or 5 people or 15 people. But to have it at the company level, you have to start at the top and you have to exemplify that you mean it and that you are executing on it, because that behavior is going to rub into the reports, and then that behavior will follow by the other level, and so forth. That's why it takes about 18 months to 24 months to really get that embedded. It should not be seen as a project that you launch some communication for a month or two and then bingo, it happens. It will not. I have been part of transformations, and it takes that long, especially culture transformation. It takes that long, and it takes consistent behavior. And the more the leaders at the top get involved in showing those behaviors, the more it will get translated into the organization. And psychological, I don't know how well knowledge people have on psychological safety, but it's nothing else that to have an organization, right, that there is a space for opinions, there is a space to challenge the status quo, and there's no retribution to it. There's a space for allowing everybody to give input. You always in a team going to have the talkers and the ones that don't like to talk. It's the extrovert versus the introvert. And as a leader, you need to get into the habit that every time you are together, the quiet one, you ask them. They're not going to talk. So you ask them, hey, what do you think about this? But the point is that at the end of any interaction, the leader allow everybody to put their voice out there. They need to create the space for innovation talks, creativity talks, without saying this is a bad idea. All ideas are good. It's just some ideas are good for the next 2 years. Some ideas may be good for the next, 5 years, but never drop it as, oh, that's a bad idea. That's when you open that space of security. And then the most important one is creating the environment where bad decisions, nobody takes a bad decision because they want to screw up. I haven't known that. People always take a decision because they think it's going to work, right? And I like to teach people how you make calculated decisions or educated decisions, right? So you understand why you are taking that risk and what could be the consequences. But you do it, you still do it. And then what you do is create a space for lesson learned. What did we learn? And not necessarily create a retribution, a punishment, culture, because then nobody's going to take decisions, and then the high level people, they find themselves having to take all the decisions.
Yeah, no, I love that approach. And it sounds like, a lot of this is happening at the team level. So the senior leaders role model and exemplify the culture that you want to build. But then there needs to be a lot of ground level work and frontline managers and above to really meet with their teams and create those safe environments for challenging the status quo and
Yeah.
raising questions.
I mean, I'm gonna give you a tip about something that I did myself, and I encourage my team to do it. As I visited the different sites, I always took the time to do what I call a roundtables. But in the roundtables, I will skip levels. So I was talking to associates that were on the floor in manufacturing. Sometimes I will skip 3 levels in it. And what I will do is I will learn from them, first of all, what was their challenges, how they see the culture, how they see the engagement. That beside that, they really, oh my God, Esther is so approachable. Esther is taking the time to talk to us about the business. What that was doing for me, it was letting me know who in my leadership was actually communicating down the culture that we wanted to have in the company, that was communicating down what the priorities were. And what I will do then when I have my one-on-ones with my reports, I will not use it to criticize them. I will just say, hey, I met with your group, I noticed that sometimes I will say, I noticed that they understand very well where we want to go with the culture, and a good job. You definitely are getting the communication down. But sometimes the feedback was, hey, I met with them, and it seems to me that they're still confused about where we want to go with the culture or what are the priorities. I would encourage you to, do a couple of skip levels, round tables, and get to know what is happening.
I love that concept of
Yeah.
roundtables. That's
Yeah.
really a nice takeaway that I think everyone listening to this can implement immediately. I'm very curious. Your empathy challenges for the next guest on the show.
Yeah. So when you put that challenge on me, I think the hardest part is, how do you manage putting boundaries to the empathy when you have to move from empathy to consequences? Because there's a fine line, and how you apply consequences, but you don't have to necessarily give up empathy. How do you move to action where not necessarily empathy have to be excluded? Because you could apply consequences or you could apply accountability, but still have the the empathy skills in that.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. It's something that comes up often in these conversations. I look forward to seeing how the next guest approaches that. I'll definitely share the response with you.
Okay, well, that's awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Esther. This was such a wonderful conversation. You're such an inspiring leader. I love that you just continue to mentor and coach others and continue to leave a legacy, beyond your career in biopharma. So thank you for your service to others, and thank you for leading by example.
No, you are more welcome. And to all your listeners, I wish them the best, and keep listening so that you can keep learning tips, from different leaders.
If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you would like to join the Empathy Collective community, visit theempathycollective.com and use the discount code ROEPOD109 to get 10% off your membership. Life is too short. Let's take care of each other at work so that together we can make this world a better place.